What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. We talked to Nick Underhill of neworleans.football. And, well, what a time to talk to Nick. As the Saints, not in the playoffs, not a high draft pick, 9-8, and yet have managed to make themselves into the talk of the NFL news cycle. And it's interesting, Nick, because I read New Orleans on football all the time. I've been a proud subscriber for years now. And I read your post game where you were kind of talking about like how, oh my God, like you finally have a dominant win. You get a tantalizing glimpse of kind of what the vision was, right? And instead of celebrating all this good, we're talking about drama. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, I agree. I see that. But I don't know, man. The more that I've basked in this, I'm happy this happened. I almost feel like this need to happen because obviously there are cracks in this culture that people want out there and that are hiding underneath. And it's almost like if none of this had ever happened, we would have gone down this kind of false road of, oh, look, everything's good. Everything's improving. Like, yes, the team played better. Yes, the team won. I do not think the team likes the staff. I mean, we just played a clip of Cam Jordan basically saying it's not good enough. And if you need changes in leadership, that needs to happen the same way that players can change, which felt like to me a drawing in the line of the sand of, okay, like I know y'all are probably getting ready to move on from me, maybe positioning Marchant and Lattimore, move on from him, Alvin Kamara. It felt like very much like a them or us. And it feels like Saints leadership is leaning towards DA and company, which is wild. Given that I just don't know why what he has done to prove that. I mean, how accurate do you think all of this is?
All right, so that clip, that was a question I actually asked, and I was asking about player leadership, and then people clipped it and posted it online and it kind of distorted it to make it sound like he was talking about like the front office, but he was actually talking about player leadership within that because that. But look, everything else I agree with totally. I mean, look, things were rough behind the scenes the whole entire year, and I mean, I'm comfortable going as far to say that there was a fracture in the locker room at a certain point, and I do think that winning a bunch of games kind of cleared some of it up. But there was a point in this season where I was certain that the ship was going out. I had a story written, like ready to like lay a bunch of stuff. Like I was just waiting. I was like, okay, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna be ready for it. It's going to come any day now. Like they lost 3 games in a row. I was like, this is it. Detroit game. This is it. Like it just never kind of came, but it was there. And I think things got better as the season went on. There's no doubt about it. I think some guys being, injured or whatever, like kind of put younger players in those spots. And then the culture started to shift back a little bit towards where they wanted it to be. And then I think by like this final game, like you kind of saw like, I think guys like A.T. Perry, Kendrick Miller, like they're more bought in probably to a way when they've never seen a different way. And I think that was kind of one of the things that kind of hurt the locker room a little bit the last couple of years is I think that guys were around during the Sean Payton way and they were so bought into it and so believed in it and thought this was the only way to win and this is the only way to go about it, that when you do something different, they're like, there's absolutely no way this is going to work. And when those people are team leaders in the locker room, I think that kind of sets a tone for everybody else. So I think it's kind of been like a weird atmosphere in there to where it's just been tough to kind of get like this buy-in to everything. But I think there's no doubt about it. Like going right down here to the wire and it's like you said, that this wasn't like a planned like mutiny or anything. It was just kind of like this thing that happened. And then it was just kind of like, wait a minute. Like the coach said, this isn't supposed to happen. He's super pissed off about it. And then everybody's on Twitter, like tweeting things, supporting Jameis. Look, I think it's kind of unfair to single Jameis out because it was like a whole entire team thing. But like Jameis, through no fault of mine at least, like became the face of this thing. And I think it's just really interesting that players are like tweeting support of him, which
that's what I'm saying. It feels like they've been waiting to kind of get some of this out there, right? And that this wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a planned mutiny, but you don't waste an opportunity. And now everybody's hitching on to be like, no, you know what? Like, here's how I feel about it.
Look,
forget it. Like I side with the players.
There's enough deniability to go like, oh, like Jameis is the best teammate ever, whatever. But like, if you read between the lines, like there was a line drawn in the sand here by the coach, and like everybody's kind of jumping on the other side of it. Now, we were in there yesterday, and I was talking to a lot of people, kind of off the record people that like I'm real cool with, that have no reason to lie or anything, and they said, I honestly don't think Jameis went out there and like planned this. Like, I think he was just out there, and he's like, Jameis, he's just kind of like, let's go do this type of guy, like, a little bit goofy, whatever. Like, and he's just out there. Honestly, they said thinking about like, let's do this for Jamal and like, whatever. And he's like, of course he probably knows he's going to piss off the coach, but he's probably not thinking it through to the point where it's going to become like this like massive thing. It's going to look like a cheap shot, all this stuff. But then here you are. So I think on Jameis's side of it, like, I don't think he was out there like it was motivated through a pure act of defiance. I think he actually had like these intentions. As 10 feet away, you're looking at it like, man, that's kind of misguided a little bit, but it is what it is. But yeah, look,
but it only becomes a massive thing because of the underlying tension, right? If things were more solid, then it's a bit more of what Jameis was kind of alluding to, like, what's the great difference between 48 and 41, right? Like it's a little bush league, but it's kind of like keep it moving.
Yeah, we were talking about this on our post game show, and like Mike's like trying to keep it a little bit more level-headed than I was at the time. But, the thing I said there was, hey, look, like I kind of know too much about some of this other stuff. And then when you know like these other things and then you see this and it plays into this and you're like, man, I'm going to have a story coming out later today where I lay out like some of the stuff that's happened behind the scenes. But like, look, there was a bunch of stuff going on.
Football today. Go check it out. You're going to want to read it. Trust me, I'm now excited.
Absolutely. But look, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I do think tension's kind of bubbled all season, and this is clearly like a line in the sand. But like the thing is, nothing's gonna happen. Like that's the thing, nothing is gonna happen at all. Like DA's gonna be the coach, the players are gonna go home, they're gonna come back, and this is all gonna kind of just smooth over a little bit. But I mean, I think it's definitely fascinating, and then you kind of just go back and play through the season. Guys talking about playing for each other. We're playing for each other. Yeah. There was never, we're fighting for the coach. We're playing for each other. Alvin Kamara's comments the whole entire season, even if you aren't lifting up that curtain and looking underneath it, like there was enough sitting on the windowsill, like staring out to the outside world where you saw some of this stuff lined up. And this is just another item, on those things out in plain view that just kind of show that stuff was not great in that locker room this year. So when they're talking about changing the culture and everything, I would not be surprised to see kind of like an exodus of some named players. From this team, just because they want to try to preserve the culture with DA and not preserve the culture over here with these other guys. And that's the decision they're making. So I'm prepared to see some big name guys, potentially not be on the team next year. I think Marshawn Lattimore is one of them that you're definitely looking at. I'd be surprised if Mike Thomas wants to come back.
No, that's
I think the door's open. I think the door's open for Alvin, maybe if there's the right opportunity. I would not be surprised to see some of these guys get traded this offseason. And Mike obviously is a free agent, but I think there's going to be some big changes.
And it's like anything else in life. It's filled with gray. It's filled with nuance because some of those players, are getting older and maybe represent more value in terms of assets that could be returned or whatever. So like, I'm not saying that those arguments are wholly without merit, but it does feel odd that Dennis Allen is the one that you are choosing over that, when I don't know that there's been any great reasoning as to why you should. Yes, you improved from 7-10 to 9-8 this year, but objectively, this season was still a failure. You were in the most winnable division we've seen in years, probably the easiest overall schedule I've ever seen since we've been doing this job, and it's the NFL, so it's a relative easy, but still relatively easy. Paid $40 million for a quarterback, and you barely get to a winning record. And you almost tease in the end with what could have been, right? And look, there's exciting that you mentioned Kendre Miller, A.T. Perry. The young secondary looks awesome. Carr finished really solid 5 of the last 6 games. But I guess it's just like, I think I speak for most Saints fans where there's just such a bad taste in the mouth because of all the meat that was left on this bone, that I'm not going to sit here for a third off. Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not going to sit here for a third offseason and give the benefit of the doubt or believe in the vision when you're watching first-round picks miss and just be complete non-factors, when you're watching just completely or consistently fall short of expectations. And a lot of it all goes back to Loomis. And so, like, I'm not going to applaud him for choosing to stick with DA until it ends up being correct. And maybe it will. And I'll eat crow and all of that, right? But my job's just to analyze and entertain and talk about all of this. He's going to have to get these choices right. It just feels a bit wild to be choosing someone with DA's resume and him, like, okay, like Scott Kusher said this, and I'll ask it to you. Why does it feel like the Saints organization is blaming the players for turning on Allen instead of Allen for losing the locker room?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think any situation though is like when there's a long-term boss that's kind of in there and then the boss leaves, there's going to be people that just don't buy into the new boss. Like
True.
it's
Very
not
true.
the old culture. They're never going to be happy. It's just kind of, I think sometimes those situations just kind of are what they are. And sometimes people can't be won over. And that's just kind of the situation sometimes that you're in. And then especially you look at a situation like that, like Sean was so heavy into that. Like, it's kind of like taking, I can't even think of a good example, but like if you take the main guy out of a situation and then it's just kind of, you try to bring the people in behind him to fill it in. It's just, you're never going to have the same intensity. You're never going to have the same feeling. Nobody's ever going to care the same amount as they're trying to replicate this other person. And then I think there's just players or workers, if it's a company where they're going to feel that and they're going to feel the difference and they're going to look at it and say, this doesn't work. And it's just never going to get a chance to do it. It's just, sometimes people are just so ingrained into a certain type of way of doing things that a different way, it just feels so radical to them. So I think kind of even within that point though, I was thinking about this last night in when you're trying to do that, like say, you're like, I don't know, I'm just going to say like my company, for instance, if I left and everybody tried to fill it in, anybody watching and all the people working, it would just be like, this feels different. Yeah. Maybe it's better, maybe it's not, but it's different. And some people aren't going to like that different feel. So it's going to turn the product off to it. So, I think it's almost an argument for going outside of the system and then just kind of doing it all over so that nobody is making those comparisons. It's a whole new thing. It doesn't feel familiar. It's completely different. And it just kind of takes away those parallels between the two things. And when you get to a point where things aren't working, maybe that's when you make that call. But they feel like it is working and they think they're going to go out and get, somebody that can help them with their offense or whatever. Maybe it's John Gruden. We'll see. My door is open to be proven wrong, but I think I exist in the same place as you, where it's just going to be like, all right, September 3rd or whenever the season starts next year, like, what are you? Because like I'm not going to like make these. I can't do it again because it's just, I mean, we said 10 wins the whole offseason, that ended up being 9. Like, that's close, but like it didn't feel like it was close to 10. That wasn't like the visual close to 10 that I thought I was going to see when I said 10. I just can't do it again. Like, I got to be. I got to see it. I got to see the wins. And I bet the fans feel the same way. Like, they'll probably show up week 1, buy tickets. But like, if you aren't winning, like, what's happening week 2? And I think that's just kind of the fair place to exist right now. Like, it's just been blind faith is over. You got to do it. And I know they won 9, but when you do the autopsy of the 9 of who they played, it's a fraud. What quarterbacks they didn't face, who was injured when they played them, it's not a real 9, man. That's not the 9 that we thought when we were guessing 10 wins.
No, not at all. I mean, we thought that the Saints had the potential to be a team that could actually make noise in the playoffs. And maybe in this last game, you finally saw a glimpse of what that could have been like. Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.